Hello! Welcome to the executive branch. This unit will cover chapters 8, 9, and 10, and we will cover the American president. Yay! Let's get started. So our learning objective for today is to describe the requirements for the office of the vice president and the role, or the office of the president, and the role of the vice president. So let's start with the president. Qualifications. There are 3 constitutional or formal requirements that a president must meet in order to become president. And we've talked about those before, but let's just review. They have to be at least 35 years old. They have to be a natural-born citizen. And they also have to be a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. Now, there are some other informal requirements that people may want to see their president have. And I'll let you think about those and answer that in the Edpuzzle video. So the term, presidents serve 2 4-year terms. That's the maximum number of terms they can serve unless they have to somehow hit that 10-year limit, okay? And we've talked about this before, but just to review with you, if you are a vice president and the president you're serving for dies, and that person has served 2 years or more of their term, then you, of course, first have to finish out their term, and then you can run and be elected 2 times on your own. Now, if the person you're serving for dies after serving less than 2 years of his term, then you, of course, have to finish out that term, and then you can only be elected 1 time on your own. And all of that comes about because of the 22nd Amendment. And the 22nd Amendment, we know, was named after FDR and allows presidents to serve no more than 2 terms or a total of 10 years. And we call it the Roosevelt Amendment, named after FDR, because he was the only president to serve more than 2 terms, which you already know. All right, so elections. Electing the president. There is a super special day that we elect presidents in the United States. Presidential elections happen the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November every 4 years. So take a gander at this calendar, and of course the day is going to start, or the week starts with Sunday, so it goes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just in case you're confused, and answer in the question when the election will take place on this calendar. All right, so some stuff about the president. Our current presidential salary is $400,000 a year. They also get a $50,000 expense account. They get a $100,000 non-taxable travel account, and then they get about $19,000 for entertainment. Okay, now when you look at that, you say, wow, that's a lot of money. But if you really think about it, we're paying a person $400,000 a year to govern arguably the most powerful nation in the world, and we pay people more than that to play baseball. Let's be real, okay? So he also, of course, gets Air Force One, he gets free health care, and, of course, gets to live in the White House, which would be amazing. Pension. A pension, of course, is going to be what you get when you retire, and the president is no different. As of 2013, the president gets about $200,000 a year in pension or in retirement. Okay, there's also the option for a spousal payment. So if the president dies, even after he's not in office, his widow is still going to be eligible to receive payment from the government. And that spousal payment right now is about $20,000. So that's really not a huge chunk of money, but that's still something that's available for those widows. The most recent presidential widow was Nancy Reagan, and she actually declined that payment because they were pretty wealthy on their own. So some other stuff about the president. Presidential succession is something that is talked about a lot. If you guys have ever watched the new show on ABC, Designated Survivor, kind of talks a little bit about the presidential succession. So the most recent time presidential succession has come into play was in the case of President Richard Nixon, okay? President Nixon, you all know, had to resign. Well, he didn't have to, but he did resign as part of the whole Watergate scandal thing. His first vice president was a guy named Spiro Agnew. Now, Spiro Agnew resigned before Nixon resigned, and he had to resign, I think it was due to like a part of a plea bargain in a tax evasion case. Awesome. Anyway, so that left a vacancy in the office of the vice president. Well, you can't have a vacancy in the vice presidency because then what if something happens to the president? What are you going to do? So according to the 25th Amendment, President Nixon had to appoint a new vice president. So he appointed Gerald Ford to be his new vice president. Now, Gerald Ford actually holds a pretty interesting place in history. He's the only American president to have never been elected. Okay, he was appointed by Nixon to be the vice president, and then he assumed the presidency when Nixon resigned. Super fun fact. So the presidential line of succession is something that we want to focus on for just a second. For your test, you will be required to know the first 4 positions. Okay, and I'll just line those out for you real quick. The first position, obviously, is the vice president. Duh. After that, the Speaker of the House. Then you have the President pro tempore of the Senate. And then you have the Secretary of State. Okay, and then it goes all the way down the list of all of the cabinet members. And that is all for today. Let me know if you guys have any questions.